Excuse me for eating Cookie Crisp cereal, but it's comfort food for me because I'm realizing we have a new Cold War. We're basically in Cold War 2.0. You have people in this country who voted for Hillary Clinton or who voted for Donald Trump who are so adamantly against him that they're linking anybody who is anti-establishment or claims to be anti-establishment as a traitor. And they think it's all fun and games. They think that there's no consequence to that. How? How can you think like that, put other people's lives in jeopardy, and think that what you're doing is so nonchalant and okay? Okay? This makes no sense. Because when you call somebody a traitor, you're basically saying that there's a possibility that they could be put to death because of it. That's what treason, that's what the charge of treason is about, that you want to put somebody to death for being treacherous. But yet you have so many people saying Bernie Sanders and Jill Stein are treasonous. But yet there's not one shred of evidence in the Mueller investigation that Bernie Sanders campaign managers or Jill Stein campaign managers were talking to Russia. Not single one indictment on that. Not single one indictment on that. So when people say that, what they're really doing is they're making up this egregious lie, which is detrimental in overall. Dishonesty like that is dangerous. Dishonesty like that is dangerous. And it drives me balls to the wall, batshit crazy. When I see people thinking it's perfectly okay to say this shit. And yet, they claim to be objective. They're not. They claim to know what they're talking about when they don't. These are the same people who said that the people who voted against Hillary Clinton were sexist. Gee, a lot of people voted for Jill Stein, and Jill Stein happens to be a woman. I'm failing to see the connection here because I don't see it. I don't see how the people who voted for Jill Stein are sexist. I don't see how the people who voted for Gary Johnson are fascist, which is another thing I'm fucking hearing. A lot of people try to equate anyway, in their little worldview, that the libertarians and Republicans are the same people. We aren't. We're not Republicans. We're not Democrats. We're for the individual human being. We don't look at skin color. We don't look at gender. We look at someone as a full human being. That's all that libertarian is. It's a political philosophy based upon individuality. It's not based on specific traits. And it drives me crazy when you have these people saying, oh, the people who vote for Gary Johnson were just too afraid to vote for fascist Trump. Fascist Trump? Fascist Johnson? Fascist Trump? Now, Trump is a lot of things. I'm not sure he's a fascist, but to call Gary Johnson supporters fascist is a bit too fucking extreme for me. I voted for Gary Johnson. I'm against fascism. Gary Johnson is also opposed to fascism because, let's see, he wouldn't be a libertarian if he was for fascism. Hey, and let me put this in perspective too. These same people that are saying that, though, the people who vote for Jill Stein are sexist, the people who voted for Gary Johnson are fascist. Let me ask this crowd something. When did your mind become corrupted by brainwashing? When did your critical thinking skills get corrupted by brainwashing? Because I like to think for myself. I like to hear all sides of the opinions on a topic before I give my opinion on it. Now, one of the people I admire, I don't always agree with him, but I admire him for his honesty, Ben Shapiro, is the same way. He's a Republican. Sure, he voted against Trump. But yet, here's the thing about Ben Shapiro. He doesn't let his anti-Trump stances steal his critical thinking. Let's look at someone on the left who I can admire and listen to. Let's look at Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart, who's anti-Trump. He might have voted for Clinton. He's anti-Trump, but guess what? He doesn't call all Trump supporters racist because he knows Trump supporters who live in New Jersey with him. He's known them for years. They're not racist. They're not horrible people. And guess what? He doesn't let his critical thinking skills against Trump skew his idea of what he thinks of Trump supporters and Republicans in general, or just people who think conservative. Doesn't matter if they're Republican, they could be Democrat. He doesn't let that skew his critical thinking. And what makes Ben Shapiro and Jon Stewart polar opposites on the political scale, but what makes them both honest? They listen to every opinion on the subject before they give their own. Now, personally, for me, I like to do the same thing. I like to model myself after the fact. I want to hear everything first before I give my opinion on it. And you know what? I'm going to give my opinion on something. Under the Obama administration, we let our military-industrial complex fund Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia then started a war on Yemen. And just recently, the Saudi Arabian government dropped a bomb on a bus of Yemen children. And who is complicit with that attack? We are. We as Americans, our tax money makes us complicit in the bombing of the school bus of Yemen children. And yet, you have people on MSNBC like Chris Hayes, who does a 2-minute brief talk about the story 45 minutes into his show and has no emotion talking about it. And he doesn't tell the Congress that we must stop doing it. But he has to say that. But he says they can, as if they have the option if they want to. Give me a break. Now look. Obviously, this war on Yemen is ramped up under Trump. But the fact that nobody's talking about it because it doesn't directly involve Trump doing something stupid, well, let's throw it under the bus. Let's put it on the back burner because obviously the bombing of a school bus of children that aren't American apparently isn't a big deal. The reason why I'm so mad is because we're in another Cold War. Everything is anti-Russian propaganda, and every Russian American, whether they are a foreign exchange student, an immigrant, whatever. To me, if you live in this country, if you pay taxes, if you go to school, whatever, you're an American to me. But Russian Americans are terrified of other Americans because all this anti-Russia propaganda is out there. And when I hear people on Fox News, CNN, MSNBC saying Russia this, Russia that, Russians this, Russians that, they blatantly put all Russians in that same category of they're all Kremlin. They're all Kremlin. And then you have Russian Americans who are first generation Russian Americans who their parents were from Russia and they're the firstborn Americans of their family. They're terrified to leave their house. They're terrified to lose their Social Security. And then you have Russian Americans who are young, who are having jobs, and they're afraid of losing their jobs because of their background. You have so many Russians who are fucking terrified of this propaganda that we should really congratulate ourselves, Americans who aren't Russian, because we made our fellow neighbors, our fellow possible cousins, family members, terrified of leaving their own fucking houses. We did that shit. We let that happen. We let our media run with this. We should be afraid of Russia. We should be afraid of Russians. And the Russian citizens of almost every single county in Russia, of the whole country, hold anti-America rallies every day because of our media's ignorant portrayal of Russians in general. We should be fucking proud of ourselves because we not only started another Cold War, but we alienated a group of people just because they happen to be Russian. And yet, that type of thinking, that type of critical thinking is stunted because we should just be afraid of Trump and blame Russians for everything, right? When did people lose their ability to think? I don't fucking know. But it disgusts me. It really does. I'm not saying what the Russian government did was good. But here, notice how I said was Russian government, not Russians. Russian government. Words mean something. And yet, words are just thrown out willy-nilly, like racist, sexist, transphobe, Islamphobe, whatever. If someone's a genuine racist, they judge someone based off the color of their skin or something that they don't like about someone. That's a genuine racist. Just because somebody doesn't like Mexican food, that's not racist. That actually happened to Jay Leno. When he had his second series on NBC, one of the writers says, "We're getting Mexican food. Do you want some?" He's like, "Nah, I don't like Mexican." And somebody says, "That's racist." No, it's not. Not liking Mexican food is not racist. Okay? If Jay Leno said, "I hate Mexican people," that would be a different story. But he doesn't like Mexican food. There's a difference. And it drives me crazy. People use words willy-nilly, and their critical thinking is stunted. It drives me